it wasn't able to. Hello, this is Larry Putnam Jr., and I would like to welcome you all to today's webinar, Slim Web Services, Project Estimation Goes Global. Before we begin, I'd like to make you aware of a few technical items. All of you who are listening on the conference call are currently on mute. To ask a question at any point during the presentation, simply use the Q&A dialog box shown on the right-hand side of the WebEx screen. Please direct these questions to myself or Mike Isaac. Elizabeth and I will field as many of these questions as we have time for at the end of the presentation. If we don't have time for your question, don't worry, we will respond to all of these by email. Elizabeth will also provide contact information for any further questions you might have after the presentation. I'll start by quickly introducing our presenter today, Elizabeth Pendergrass. As Marketing Manager at QSM, Elizabeth has over 7 years of experience working in software and technology marketing. Her responsibilities at QSM include website and search engine marketing, organizing in-house and joint webinars, social media, creating marketing materials for new product offerings, and managing QSM's PR efforts. I'm pleased to turn it over to Elizabeth for today's Slim Web Services webinar.
Thanks, Larry, and thanks everybody for joining us today. Today I'm going to be introducing you to Slim Web Services, a collection of analytical services designed to promote transparency and availability of measurement and estimation information to organizations. I thought it might be useful to look back on where we came from in terms of the 8 generations of estimation and measurement solutions. I think you'll agree we're the most mature, and we've typically focused on estimation and measurement professionals, but what we want to do going forward is expand our capabilities to a new group, the non-technical people that still get involved with a project, perhaps negotiating schedules and budgets, and provide them with capability that they can use on demand when they need it. We also want to embed estimation and measurement as critical functions of established project management and risk assessment practices. So now just to summarize the current desktop suite for those of you that might not be familiar with it. QSM offers the Slim suite of tools. That stands for Software Lifecycle Management. And these tools are absolutely the most robust estimating and measurement capabilities on the market. They support more than just software now. Everything within these products can be configured. We can support any sizing methodology that you're using that can be distilled down into some sort of weighted numeric input. And we can support any type of design process that goes through the typical phases. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it and deploy it? We can configure the Slim tool to measure and estimate. And it's easily calibrated with your own historical data. And I'm going to show you how to leverage those capabilities today with Slim Web Services. And we continue to collect industry data. We currently have over 10,000 projects in the QSM database, and we continue to keep that fresh every couple of years. And this is built into our products for comparison purposes and calibrating the tools. So we've got incredibly robust capabilities currently in the desktop product, but some of the things that go with that robustness and rich features is that they tend to be more complex to use. We've created various wizards within the tools to streamline processes. We've built in some artificial intelligence, like the automatic solution generator, and we've included pre-configured templates for different design processes that our clients tend to use. So we've done some things to minimize the complexity, but it's still there, and it requires users to have a certain level of training and experience. So that's what we've catered to up until now, the estimation experts. And these are the people that are relied upon to communicate the results of their analysis to the business stakeholders, the people that have to make decisions on schedule and budget and negotiate with clients. And because these are highly specialized people and there's a limited number of them, it tends to create a bottleneck because we can only analyze as many projects as we have time for. And also because we're funneling all of this through a centralized group, it's hard to get real-time access to critical business information. It also tends to keep estimation in a specialized niche area, and that's something that we want to change with our new Slim Web Services product. So what do we want to do to address these challenges going forward? We want to make measurement and estimation available on demand to the broader business community, and we will be doing this by implementing a web-based solution so anyone that has access to a web browser and a username and password to log in has access to this product. There's no need to install anything locally. You don't need to get permission from your IT department to install new software on your system, but it does leverage all of those robust capabilities that we've spent over 30 years building in the desktop tools. So we've implemented services from across the entire life cycle, so very early on, when a project is really just an idea, we can analyze those situations and determine if a project's going to be feasible or not before it gets into our pipeline. We can run a more detailed estimate once we have our requirements nailed down. And we can track a project that's in progress, and based on the actuals that are coming off of that project, we can forecast it to complete. And then we can take a completed project and get the performance metrics from that project into our database, and then be able to benchmark that project against internal or external trends. So what we want to do is leverage all of those estimation experts that we've been training to use the tools and run our estimates and develop and maintain. They will be the people that are developing and maintaining the templates that will run the back office of Slim Web Services. So they will provide the support in terms of configuring template solutions based on the types of projects that need to be estimated, and then they will be calibrating those templates with our organization's own historical data that will be driving the estimate. So we're really building on top of the infrastructure that we've been implementing for the past 30 years. So the main objective with Slim Web Services is to set people and projects up for success by making measurement and estimation easy to use, and this requires minimal training. We want to cater to the occasional user that is not a measurement or estimation expert, and we want to make these analytical services available on demand, anytime, anywhere, using any device with a supported browser. So we want to make information on projects transparent, so we're going to set people, users up within the system, and then based on their permissions, everybody that's got a right to view certain information will be able to access it when they need it. And this makes for a collaborative solution and allows people to cooperate, get the information early when they need it, and make better business decisions. So this is the initial list of services that we will be offering. The ones in blue are in the 1.0 version that is currently available. And the first set of services that are available are in the measurement and estimation area. So we have a project feasibility and assessment service that is a very early risk assessment on project schedule and cost expectations. We have an estimation and alternative service that allows you to run more detailed estimates with complex sizing and productivity inputs. The project closeout service allows you to enter the core performance metrics when a project is finished and provides a simple performance assessment. And we have some portfolio dashboard services, which will allow you to go in and filter a set of projects and then look at some demographics and trends of that data. There's also a portfolio benchmark service. You get a filtered set of projects, and then you can compare those projects to an internal or external set of reference benchmark trends. In gray, you'll see that I've got a couple additional services that will be rolling out in the second release. There's a tracking and status reporting service, which looks at projects that are in progress. So if your assumptions change, or if you're not tracking to the plan the way that you thought, then you can run a forecast to completion service. So I'm going to move into the demonstration part of our webinar now, and I'm going to start by showing you the admin part of Web Services. There's two parts. There's two websites. There's the admin, and then there's the Web Services analytical site. So I'm going to log into the admin right now, and the majority of your users are not going to be spending their time here. This is for your back office people, for your admin people that are going to be setting up users and permissions within the system. So this is all about configuring your site. So here's where you set up your organizational breakdown structure. This is where you set up user assignments according to the structure of your organization. In this example, we have a company, Industrial Systems Incorporated, and at the top of the OBS, we have a Chief Financial Officer, and then we have two groups under that and some additional groups under those groups. So if I were to click on the user assignments, then I can see who is assigned to each of these individual groups. And then if I click on Browse Users, you can see all of the users that you have set up within the system. You can see their basic information, where they sit in the OBS. If I click on an individual user, this is where I can go in and customize where they sit in the OBS. I can select their role. So this is going to be their level of permissions, and you have their basic information. So now just to show you those roles that I have set up, these are different levels of permissions. So this is just an example. You can set up as many roles that make sense for you and your organization, and you can give them different levels of permissions, so you can really make this very customized. In this case, we have an admin who might be going in and setting up users and customizing the system like I'm doing now. We have the back office, so this might be for your estimation experts, the people that are going to be customizing templates and configuring templates for your users to be using with estimates and things. We might have a portfolio manager who just needs to see collections of projects. They don't necessarily need to run any analysis. We might have a senior level person who wants to look at their portfolio of projects and things like that. We might have a contributor who would be making updates to estimates and running actual analysis. And then we have a stakeholder. This could be a client who just needs to come in and view the results of a certain analysis, but they won't actually have permissions to go in and change anything. So if I go into permissions by role, this will show me the collection of permissions for each of these roles across the entire Web Services site. We have 3 levels of permissions. There's full access, where somebody can go in and add or remove projects. And we have contribute, where somebody can make inputs to existing projects that would update the project. And then we have view, where they can view information, but they can't make changes to it. So those are the basic settings. And you can add in as many roles as you want, and you can configure the permissions matrix any way that you want to. It's very easy to administer and control what users have access to what information. You can also customize Slim Web Services with your corporate logo. You can customize things like currency and effort units. You can, customize the system with, whatever makes sense for your development lifecycle, like development classes and methods. And you can turn on or off any of these options as they make sense for you. And we also have some nice online help that's built into the system. This is basically the admin site, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because really most of your users are not going to be using this and won't have access to it. But there's a lot of power here to make sure that the right people can get to the right information and, customize it the way that you want. So now I'm going to show you the Analytical Services site. I'm going to log in as an admin, and this will allow me to view all of the projects in my organization. If you were logging in as an individual user, you would just view the projects that you have access to. So if I was Beverly Towson, I might just see my projects when I log in. So this is the home view, which is a project list view, and I'll be able to see the basic information for all of my projects. I can see the project name, the primary responsibility, where it sits in the OBS node that I showed you earlier, and what stage this project is in. So when I was telling you the different services earlier, this is the types of projects that each of these are. We have the size, the start date, the end date, the effort, and the average staff. And you can sort all of this information however you want. There's a lot of capability to do that here. I'm going to start by showing you a closeout service. So this is when your project finishes up, and you go into your closeout assumptions and enter the core metrics that you should be documenting at the end of every project. And this is the size, the schedule, the effort, and the defects. So that's going to be documenting your quality. You can also break this out by phases, and these are customized by however my back office has set it up. So whatever phases make sense for you, it will have that terminology in here. So once I've done this, I can go in and view the closeout solution. And this shows me how my project performed relative to whatever benchmark trends that I wanted to compare it to. In this case, I'm looking at the QSM business trends, and I'm seeing how it performed for duration, effort, and mean time to defect. That's quality. Underneath that, you'll notice I have this 5-star report, and this is giving me a basic rating for how this project performed, where 1 is bad, 5 is good. So in this case, we can see that for duration, this project is about a 3-star. And if I look underneath that, I can get some additional detail. I can see exactly what the schedule was for this project, and then I can see what the baseline value is for this trend line that I'm comparing it to. I can also see the percentile, and what this is doing is describing this 5-star report. So in this case, it's the top 42%, and that's about 3 stars here. I see the same thing, I see these other ratings here for each of these metrics, and then I get a composite rating for all of the metrics up here. And then you also get a project summary, which gives you all of the basic information for this project. So that's basically the closeout. It gives you a really nice performance assessment, and you don't have to enter that much information, but it's the core information that you should be capturing when your project finishes up: the size, the schedule, the effort, and the defects. So now I'm going to show you how you would select a group of projects to run a benchmark. So I'm just going to sort this to an individual user. You can sort this however you want. You can see there's a lot of options there, so you can really refine this to whatever group of projects you want. In this case, I've just selected projects from one user, and then now I'm going to use this to show you a benchmark. In this case, or actually, sorry, for a benchmark, you have 2 options. You have a trend view or a 5-star view. I'm going to start by showing you the trend view. So what I'm seeing here is how this project performed relative to whatever trends I have selected. I can select from any of the trends in my drop-down menu here. These would have been pre-populated for me by my back office. You'll see that some are the QSM trends that are included here, and I would see whatever makes sense for me. So if I'm doing Agile projects, I might only see some sets of Agile trends here. And you can see there's some nice customized trends as well. Those could be from my organization's historical data. And I'm currently looking at how this group of projects performed in terms of productivity versus size. So you can see that this group of projects performed better than 1 standard deviation than the baseline. I also get this nice 5-star assessment again on the side, so you see these are all about 4 stars. And then I get the overall composite view for all of the projects. If you look at the graph here, you'll see there's only 4 stars. So I could just select the project name here, and then you'll see there's a couple that are overlapping, so that's why I wasn't seeing them. But it's just a nice way to see the individual detail for all of your projects. So just to show you, you can go now and view individual metrics. If I was looking at effort, you can see these projects did not perform as well in terms of effort. Then if I look at duration, these performed very, very well in terms of duration. So this might lead me to believe that these projects have been optimized for schedule. Another option is to view this 5-star benchmark here. Now this is a nice option for less technical people. It shows just the 1 to 5-star rating, once again, where 5 is good, 1 is bad, and you can see it for just the basic dimensions, the duration, the effort, and the mean time to defect. And then you get an overall composite rating for each of the projects. And then you get the composite rating for the whole group of projects up here. So this is just a very nice option for somebody who doesn't necessarily need to go in and see all the individual trend lines, but they can see how these projects are performing. So now I'm going to show you the estimation services. I'm going to start by showing you the feasibility assessment service. Now, the situation here is a business development person is meeting with a client over lunch, and the client has a need for a new financial system. The client has a certain time available and a certain budget and a high-level notion of the capabilities that they want. So the business development person right there at the table or after lunch can take out their tablet or their laptop and enter some basic information. So I'm just going to label this a new financial project, and I can select from 3 of the options here. So I can either choose to base this upon a template, so these would have been uploaded by my back office, once again completely customized by my level of permissions and what types of projects I do. In this case, I'm going to select the Agile Pre-Approve, and you can see a nice description of this template here. I can also choose to base this project on an existing project, or I can use the QSM default settings. So I'm going to create a new project, and you can see that there's 4 basic pieces of information that it's asking me for. So I know the start date. I'm just going to go with, today. And in terms of, the schedule, the client has told me that they have 4 months available, so I'm going to enter that here. Now I have 2 options for sizing. I can either do it by relative size, and that will allow me to choose from these basic size bins. Now these are being based upon the historical database that's in my template. So there's empirical data that's driving these general size bins here. I can also size by count. So in this case, the client has told me they have about 50 business requirements that they'd like me to carry out here. So you'll see that for the sizing unit, it's business requirements, but this would be whatever's customized in your template. It might be stories or whatever makes sense for you. Then you can choose from a number of constraints. In this case, I know that cost is a constraint. So now I can enter that here. Client told me that they have a budget of $750,000. So I can calculate that now. And I quickly and easily get a solution. So you'll always see two solutions here. There's the one that's based upon your inputs, and then there's the one that's being driven by your performance trends, and it's being balanced by SLIM. So this is telling me what's reasonable for me to complete. And then this is telling me what the client solution is looking at. So I'm looking at the risk view right now, and you'll see that for each of these metrics, there's a risk bar. Right here, you'll see, if it's to the right, that's very risky. So each of these metrics is looking pretty risky for the client solution. In the balanced risk one, it's falling right about in the middle for each of these. I can also compare this solution in the project summary here. So for total duration, I see that 4 months that I entered, but the balanced solution is telling me that's really probably going to be more like 5.3 months. The total cost, we see what I put in, but the balanced solution is telling me that $1.8 million is really more realistic for a project of this size and with this schedule. So this is really good information to have early on before I'm committing to a project. I can also look at the trend view here. So I could look at something like effort, and my balanced solution sits right in the middle of my performance trends, and then you can see where the client solution compares. This is looking pretty risky based on my trends for effort. I can also look at time series, so this is going to show my effort over time. I can choose from any of these options here. You'll always see the current solution, the one based on my inputs, and the balanced solution. So this would be a good time for me to maybe go back to the client and see if we could negotiate on what's most important to them. So perhaps I could discuss with them delivering just the core requirements by the first financial quarter, and then maybe having a second release that would deliver our additional capabilities. So let me try reducing the size. So already this is getting me to a much more reasonable place in terms of effort. I could also talk to them about budget. Maybe I could get some additional funding to do this. And this brings me to a much more reasonable place. And if you look in my project summary, this is looking better as well. So nice way that you can find out early if it's going to be something that you can do, and it provides you with a much more reasonable way to negotiate. And you've got a solution that's already sanity checked before it gets into the pipeline. So now, once you get your requirements nailed down, you might want to do a more detailed estimate. So I'm just going to release the filter here, and I'm just going to show you an existing estimate. So this would be your estimate and alternatives solution. So once again, this looks similar to the feasibility area, except for now you have additional capabilities to play around with productivity, and you have additional sizing capability. So there's two ways that you can enter productivity. You can either do it by rank, and this is driven by the database that my estimate is using. So I can choose from these different bins here. Maybe I know that now what kind of resources I have available to me, so I can choose whether the productivity is going to be lower or higher. I could also enter the productivity input directly. And now with sizing, I have additional capability to use my sizing calculator and select from different configuration sets that have been put in here by my back office. So I'm going to see whatever types of sizing units I would be using. I might do requirements-based sizing if it's early on and I have, a general sense for size. Or, I could use something like business process and write-up sizing if I'm doing package implementations. So a lot of nice capability here to configure your sizing. You can also enter your code percentages. Once again, you're going to choose your constraints. In this case, they know that staff is a constraint, so they've entered their average staff here. So I've calculated this. I get my risk view. Again, I always get the two solutions, the one that's based upon my inputs and then the one that's being balanced by my database. So I have some additional views now in the estimation and alternatives service. I have a bar chart now, and what this is going to let me do is compare different solutions that I've logged. So if I play around with any of these individual solution assumptions here, I can log these solutions here by just adding the current solution to the log, and then I can select them later to compare them. So whatever I'm selecting will be my current solution. So it's a really nice way that you can go in and compare different alternatives. So then I could maybe give a client access to this, and then they could give me some feedback and I could run some additional analysis. So really nice capability to have. We can also look at the milestone comparison now, where you can see some more detailed schedule comparisons, things like that. So this is the estimation alternatives service. So now I'm going to show you the portfolio dashboard. So this is a nice option maybe for a senior level person who wants to go in and see an overall view for all of the projects in your organization or in your portfolio. So here I'm looking at it from a schedule point of view. I have a lot of projects in here. I can look at the individual demographics in a pie chart view, so I can look at things like application, primary language. I can also run a time series to show my staffing over time. I can look at a histogram, so I can look at things like productivity trends over time, things of that nature. So just to quickly show you the back office, this is an area that is only going to be used by a small group of people, your estimation or your measurement experts. People won't even see this drop-down option if you're not a back office person, if you don't have the back office access. So here's where you can go in and upload things like, your sizing configuration sets, like the one that I used in my estimation alternative service. You can choose, you can configure things like phases and reliability, all of the things that you would want to configure within your life cycle. And you can upload templates for your users to leverage when they're running their estimates. And you can also upload individual trends or groups of trends that your users can use for benchmarking and for comparing when you're using your closeout service. So here's some of the QSM ones, but you can also put in customized groups of trends. And then you can also upload individual projects. If you wanted to do some additional analysis in the desktop tools, then you can upload these projects and then you can leverage those when you're running your estimates or for doing your comparison purposes. So that's basically Slim Web Services. We've leveraged very robust capability. It builds on all of the capabilities that we've spent 30 years refining in the desktop products, but it's streamlined and much easier to use. So our goal with this tool is to get out to a broader user community so we can endow more people and more positions at more places in an enterprise with sophisticated project estimation intelligence to improve visibility, transparency, and global collaboration. So I think now would be a good time to open it up to questions.
Thanks, Elizabeth. The first question that we have is, how will this work with the desktop version? Do they work together or separately?
Either way, the web version comes with enough information to work as a standalone. So if you want more configuration capability, then you'll want to have the desktop products, and you can have a power user creating templates for the web version.
Second question is, how do I use Slim Web Services if I don't have the desktop tools?
You can have QSM create the templates for you on a consulting basis if you don't have the desktop tools. Slim Web Services also includes standardized templates that represent multiple life cycles, so you can download those very easily. But any customization would need to be done with the desktop tools or with QSM Consulting.
The next question is, how can we share the results of the estimates with others? Is there a way to print the graphs and reports?
Yeah, this is Larry here. I can jump in with that. I mean, as you can see, you can print out any of the analytical services that are in the tool. You could cut and paste, obviously, anything into any type of an Office document. What some of our clients have been doing, which is kind of interesting, is they may be doing some advanced analysis in the desktop products, and then what they'll do is upload that using the back office capability into Slim Web Services, and then they use Web Services to publish that out to the user community. So they may have a number of different stakeholders that they've got in the system that maybe only have view-only privileges. I think Elizabeth showed that in the admin site. So they can then, send out a communication to all the stakeholders, the projects out there, and they just log into the system and immediately can go open that project up and look at the results of the estimate or the benchmark if you're doing a closeout or a benchmark on that. So that's another way to use Web Services as kind of a communication vehicle, maybe getting the information originally from either Web Services or from the desktop products and then uploading it into Web Services via the back office.
All right. Next question is, are you able to have more than one constraint for a given estimate scenario?
In Web Services, especially in the feasibility assessment, what we're really trying to do there is the constraints are really desires. So we're trying to get the information from the customer and put that in, and we'll generate that solution. So we're basically reverse engineering that schedule and that budget number and figuring out what productivity is it going to take to get there. And then we're using the historical database, either the QSM one or a customer's own historical data, to generate the balanced risk solution, this is what we think we're definitely capable of doing based on our performance metrics, and then we can compare the two. One of the overall requirements or goals that we had for Web Services is we wanted to make it very simple to use, because part of the target audience for this product is people that are not necessarily estimation experts. So in the estimation service, we let them, put in more detailed size and productivity inputs, and then we let them put in a single constraint. Now they can play out and log multiple estimates using the solution log capability, but they'll do it a single constraint at a time. Yep.
All right, the next question is, will Slim Web Services replace the desktop version?
Absolutely not. It's again, it's a separate product designed to get out to a separate set of users and stakeholders. So the two product lines are designed to work together. Again, as Elizabeth was talking during the presentation, the desktop provides the core capability to configure the web services. So we can configure it for any type of a life cycle, whether you're doing agile or more, sequential types of life cycles. We can configure. We've got a notion of templates very similar to what you've got in the desktop, but then we've also taken that a step farther, where we've got configuration sets, which is just a piece of configuration within the overall template. So if I wanted to bring in, let's say, a separate sizing model where I'm looking at different design options, maybe I want to custom build it where I might be using requirements or user stories, but maybe I want to look at a package implementation. I might want to bring in a separate sizing configuration set, say for, business processes and, RICE objects and things like that. So really what the desktop allows you to do is leverage all of that configurability capability that we've spent 30 years building into the desktop, but you can then reuse that over in web services by simply loading templates and configuration sets over into web services. So what we want on the web services side is we don't want to encumber the user with all of that, robustness and possibly complexity. We want to just make it a simple experience on the web services side. So the two products are really designed to be used, in parallel. If you don't need, the advanced capabilities in the desktop, then you can just, work with web services and not have to worry about that at all.
All right. The next question is about pricing. Is the pricing the same as the desktop version?
It's going to be similar. So just like on the desktop, that we've designed each product in the suite to be a separate standalone solution, and they can be licensed separately. Web services is the same concept. Each of the services can be licensed separately. So if you only need feasibility, that's the area of pain, and maybe closeout, then you only need to license those two services. There's obviously, like on the desktop side, there's additional discounts that are built in as you take more services together. There's a volume discount that will be built in. And as you add more user licenses for those services, there's a discount that's built in. So it's very similar in that you only have to license what you plan to use. You can add things later if you want to. And as you add more and more capabilities and more users, the price per user goes down from the discounts that are built in.
All right. And the next question is, can we have a company-specific estimation database so that users can select from previous estimates?
Absolutely. So, in fact, that's a core tenet of our measurement and estimation philosophy. Is we do build in the QSM databases out of the box into our measurement and estimation products, but we encourage you to, as soon as you can start to get your own historic database built up, and you can start to generate your own performance trends, you want to use that as the basis for any of your benchmarking or estimation. So again, if you can use the closeout service to collect your projects as they finish up. So that's a very efficient way to get your historic data pulled together. And then if you wanted to create your own performance trends, that's where you would go over to the desktop to do that. So our Slim Metrics product will then allow you to generate your own custom performance trends, and then those can be uploaded into web services, and you can configure it to the back office. So if you only want your users to use your own historic data, you might want to turn off the irrelevant or not needed QSM databases and just let them have access to the corporate specific performance trends, and that way we can ensure that all the measurements and estimates that they're doing are based on our own performance data. So great question.
All right, next question is, will all the users be required to have a Slim license in order to access the web tool?
Elizabeth, you want me to take that one?
Yeah, actually, that would be great.
Yeah, again, as we said, the web services product is a totally separate product from the desktop. So if you just want to use web services, you don't have to have any licenses of the desktop product. Now, again, if you want to then configure or make any changes to the web services product, like bringing in your own performance trends, or you've got a new template that you would like to develop that you would need the desktop, there's a couple ways to go. You could add that later, or QSM could provide those configuration, on a service basis for you. So if you're going to be doing that stuff infrequently, then maybe it doesn't make sense to buy a license of desktop. Maybe it's more efficient for you just to have QSM do those things and then upload those to your web services site.
All right. Next question. We've had a few questions about implementing, and generally, how is Slim Web Services implemented?
Okay, so that I can interpret a couple.
That if you
okay, you go with that one. Then I'll jump in later.
It can either be hosted, by QSM as a SaaS, so you don't have to worry about implementing it on your end if you want us to host it, or your organization can host it on-premise. So we have two options there.
I was just going to say, when I was thinking about that question, I was like, well, there's two ways I can interpret implementing. One is, whether it's a hosted or an on-premise type of, how do I implement the product, into the environment. The other way is, how do we implement web services in the organization? So I might just talk to that for a second. What we try and do is, there's training, obviously, that comes along with web services. I believe there's a one-day class for the back office folks on the the configuration of web services, and then there's a one-day course on the analytical services. So obviously training's important, just like on the desktop. We would get the users trained up. And then we've got QSM is there to work with your folks, your admin folks or back office folks, to get the site configured. So we can work with you on building out the organizational breakdown structure. We can work with you on, defining the different types of roles that you want in your organization. We'll have a default set in there that we think are pretty good starting points, but if you've got different roles that you want, we can do that. And then we can set up the permission levels with you. So we'll work with you in getting the site configured so that it's usable for your users in terms of how many you're going to have and what their roles and permissions are. So it's similar to, on the desktop side, we've got the ramp-up process. We have a very similar concept on web services where we'll work with you closely, get it up and running and configured so that so it's set up and work the way you need it to work. Yep.
All right. Next question is, if we want to use desktop and web and the web versions, how do we exchange the data between these two?
Good question. We have right now there's a way, if you're doing work in the desktops, that you can import those projects into web services. And I said that earlier, it makes it very easy if you want to use web services to publish the information out to a number of different users. In the 1.1 release that we're currently working on, should be out in the next month or so, we believe, there'll be what I think they're calling the requirement the round trip, but basically it allows you to do things in web services and then be able to take those out and work on them in the desktop. So that'll give you the total round trip. We can bring things from the desktop into web services, and then we can also take estimates or projects that we've analyzed in web services and bring that back into the desktop. So by the 1.1 release that'll be out end of the year, you'll have that total round trip capability, so you can work with whatever analytical solution makes the most sense.
All right. Next question is, what kind of security is built in to protect company proprietary data?
Mike, you might talk just generally about the hosted solution and some of the security that's built in around the sites that we host.
With the sites that we're hosting, we have a lot of software to protect us against intrusion attacks, and every site is a we're running multi-instances, so everybody has their own instance, which essentially puts everybody on their own island. So, we're protecting against any type of attack on the websites, and we're running nightly backups for every instance that exists. That's as far as the hosted solution. Then, as JR alluded to earlier, we also offer the on-premise solution too.
So then a customer really is in total control of using their own security procedures, where web services is installed behind their own firewalls and things like that. And then the user permissions that you set up within web services protect or control who gets access to what information. So when you're setting up projects, there are certain settings within the tool where you can say, hey, I only want this project to be able to be accessed by people at my, place in the WBS or OBS or above. So there's certain ways you can do that. Or it might be a project that, I don't want anybody else to be able to see but myself, or maybe a few others, so you can actually go in and select the users that will be able to access that project. So it's very robust that way. By simply logging in, you're going to get a project list, but that project list is only going to be for ones that you have permission to see. And that's governed by how you've set up your users, your permissions, and access roles within the system. So, you can lock things down as tight as you want to, but obviously part of the advantage of web services is that you want to make sure that the people that need to get the information have the right user access so that they get it, because we want to promote that, transparency and collaboration so that people are making good decisions, when they need to make them, hopefully earlier in the life cycle.
All right, next question is, does the web service estimate include the contingency wizard capability?
It does not. So, if you wanted to go run that, there's a couple ways you could do that. You could run that solution. The way the contingency wizard works in the desktop products is that basically you tell it the probability or the assurance that you want for the solution you're looking at, your expected solution. And it's going to figure out how much does it need to lower the productivity index to give you that assurance. So you could do something similar. If you were using the desktop, you could just see how much did it lower the PI to get that assurance. And then over on the web services side, you could just go into the estimation service, log your expected to the solution log, and then just change by using the direct PI input. You would just go ahead and adjust the PI down by that same amount, rerun your solution, and then just log it to your solution and give it a name, 90% contingency solution. So we don't have it automated built into web services because, again, remember, it's designed to be a simple solution for the estimation experts. So we're trying to keep things simple, but very easily you could do something very similar by using the estimation service and the solution logging in that service to create both and then publish them.
All right, next question is for feasibility. What if the project is larger than anything in the company database? How would you select relative size?
Big. So obviously you would select the biggest bin you have. Now, if you know empirically that this thing is larger than anything that you've got in your historic database, then again, you're probably going to want to go more to one of the other sizing techniques. So you might want to use, something like business requirements. And if I know the biggest system in my database is on the average of, 1,000 requirements or whatever it turns out to be, then you won't be wanting to put in what, maybe relative to the biggest one you've got, how much bigger you think this new project is, to the best of your knowledge, and that obviously back at when we're doing feasibility assessments, things are pretty unknown or, at that point in time. So again, we would probably use more of a direct input. We would use what we know from our historic database in order to figure out, is this twice as big than the biggest thing I've ever done before, or, relative to what we know, how much bigger do we think this thing is, and then use the direct input in order to put it into our, or to run a feasibility on it. So that was a good question, because obviously when you're getting outside of the realm where you have data, then you've got to make some assumptions, and that's how you would do it. Yeah. The other thing you could lean on is the QSM database. You might want to then switch, say, to the QSM, if it was a business system you were running, you might want to switch to the QSM business system database and use our statistical bins, because we're probably going to have a much broader sample of projects, in our database than maybe you're going to have that's more homogeneous to the type of work that you do. And the other thing is, QSM, we come along with our product. So that's where you might want to, call up QSM and leverage the customer support that's built in, and have some of our consultants work with you to triangulate a size estimate when you're in that type of situation where my local data maybe isn't as useful. Let's get a QSM consultant on the phone and have them help us out with their broader statistics of data, which is now going to be over 11,000 projects with the latest database update that we're doing.
All right. I think we have time for just two more questions, probably. If we currently have a SLIM Data Manager database containing a number of project record and custom variables, would the data be compatible with the data collected through the web tool through an import-export capability?
It will. If you've got a data manager file, then what you can do is you can load that directly into WebServices. Now, I think in the question there they said something about custom variables. It's just going to bring in, again, it's designed to be a simple tool, so it's going to bring in the core metrics that would be on the basic information tab. So it's going to bring in your schedule and effort and cost by phase. It'll bring in your sizing information, and it'll bring in the defect information. So it'll bring that stuff in and then allow you to use the benchmarking services that are built into WebServices. Now, as I mentioned, if you're collecting your data in WebServices and you wanted to get it out, say to the desktop, then that's where 1.1 will have that round trip built into it, where you will be able to then download that data into Data Manager. If you wanted to collect more information, that Data Manager allows you to collect more descriptive information, and maybe those custom variables. Then you could get that into Data Manager, and again, then we can use SLIM Metrics advanced capabilities to, filter that data, pull out subsets, fit performance, benchmark trends on those different subsets. And again, if we want to then bring that back over into WebServices as a configuration set or in a template that we can then use for estimating from some of our larger clients that are mining their data, they're probably publishing new historic data trends, at least on a, biannual basis. So they want their estimators to be working with the best data that they have available. So they'll be publishing the, the most up-to-date set of trends that they've got, at regular intervals. Yep.
I think this is going to be the last question, and it is, who do you see as being typical users of this tool?
I can take that. It's basically anybody from estimators and project managers to business stakeholders and senior management. So definitely a variety of people.
Yeah, it's really the users are kind of specific to the web service that they're using. One of the things that we envisioned for, say, a feasibility service is, if you think on when projects typically, get locked in on a schedule or a budget, it's very, very early. It's when they're, maybe a good idea, or, like the case that Elizabeth laid out. You might have a business development guy that's, meeting with his client, and, what we wanted to do is make those services available to the non-technical guys, and they can quickly run those assumptions and see, do I have something that might be doable, or is there a lot of risk, and maybe it's we need to negotiate more effectively. So for some of the services like the feasibility assessment, we're really designed to get out to the non-technical people that have a need for estimation but don't, that aren't estimation experts, okay, and they've got limited information, and we want to be able to work with that. And then we've got other services like the estimation and alternatives. Those might be geared more for, say, a project manager, that wants to look at a number of alternatives, or more people that, have more of a technical background and or, are trained in measurement and estimation. The closeout service, that might, again, a project finishes up, and we just want to get a very quick snapshot of how did that project do. It may be perceived to be a horrible failure because it blew its schedule by 6 months. If we throw the numbers into the closeout service, we can compare it with industry benchmarks, our own or the QSM database, and we might see, hey, that project actually performed pretty well. So that's telling, and that might be, management that needs to see that information. And then we can, we start to bring in, well, were our assumptions realistic? Maybe we should have run the feasibility assessment on this project before we locked into it. So, it really depends on, who, which service we're talking about and what stakeholders we're trying to get out to and get that information out to. Great question.
Okay, so I guess that wraps everything up, and thank you everybody for joining us today, and thanks Mike and Larry for assisting with the Q&A. And just to make everybody aware, there will be a replay available, so we'll send an email out with a link to that recording as soon as we get it up. So thank you once again, and look out for future emails or future webinars from us. Thank you.